This is spicy. Like, the DOJ is going to have to go into overdrive, right? Go into that and really communicate with Ukele and try to get this guy back.
He's not some Maryland father, as the mainstream media will make you believe. He's actually a member of MS-13 and was involved in human trafficking.
So what are they going to see at the border? A fixed border, because President Trump fixed it in the last 6 weeks, and they should have been there for the past 4 years.
A federal judge ordered this guy to come back to the United States. He's currently in El Salvador, was deported by the Trump administration, and she said, bring him home, put him on an airplane, and get him back ASAP. We remember Trump deported a bunch of people based on the Alien Enemies Act, and we talked about this guy before, saying that he was scheduled for deportation, but was not supposed to be deported specifically to El Salvador. So the question really becomes, is Trump, one, going to bring this guy back, and does he have to bring him back, or can he just move him to another country that is not El Salvador, based on the orders from all of these courts? Now, we've talked about this case before. It's Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. The judge who ordered him to be flown back into the country is this woman here. Her name is Paula Xinis from Maryland. And it's interesting because I looked up her record and her background, and of course she was a Democrat appointee, but she was also somebody who sued cops, which is curious because the reason these guys were deported was because they were Tren de Aragua alleged gangbangers. And of course everybody's claiming that's not true. They're innocent barbers, and that's all they do is want to make America great. So here was interesting is Jeff Sessions, back when this nomination was happening, said she was in a private practice of suing cops alleging police brutality. Xinis was most recently with the Baltimore law firm who represented the family of Freddie Gray, 6 Baltimore police officers charged in connection with that. And she made a ton of money, right? $6.4 million in a settlement there. She built a career, someone said, out of suing the police, and has shown a lack of understanding of the reality of law enforcement, which is probably why she's bringing back alleged Tren de Aragua people back into the country. Like, oh, bring them back. Says it's critical that we have judges that respect the rights of the accused, but also law enforcement, or the American people. President Obama appointed this woman, and everyone says she's eminently qualified and so on. But there was a hearing. A federal judge, Xinis, ruled that the United States must bring back this guy. The Trump administration conceded in a court filing that it deported him because of an administrative error, which is kind of being taken out of context. It's like deported him to El Salvador because of an administrative error. The deportation itself, not necessarily the administrative error. It was the error that he went to El Salvador. He could have gone to any other country, but said it could not bring him back because he's in custody down there. So in the hearing, which took place today, it appeared to mark the first time that they admitted an error, which again is an error between the countries. So there was some testimony about what happened here today. It says, the judge said, this case is certainly important to Abrego Garcia and his family. So in recognition of that, this judge says, I feel like I can't wait on giving my order. I can't wait on it. So over the course of the hearing, the judge had repeatedly raised issues with the removal to El Salvador. Said, well, an immigration judge had previously granted him withholding of removal to El Salvador, meaning he could suffer prosecution in El Salvador. He was still considered removable, right? That's the thing. So he could have been deported, but he just couldn't be deported to El Salvador. And the error was he got sent to El Salvador. Now, Xinis cited the status of her ruling, saying that he was apprehended last month without any legal basis and was deported without justification of any legal basis, which is not true. We covered the documents. Multiple judges explained that he was, and he didn't show up to court that one time. Now, this was an illegal act. Congress said you can't do it, and you did it anyways. The Department of Justice attorney, Irez Ruvini, conceded to Abrego's attorneys that he should not have been deported to El Salvador. Says, our only arguments are jurisdictional, okay? He should not have been sent to El Salvador. Now, Xinis, an Obama appointee, questioned why the U.S. could not bring him back. Why can't we get him back, she said. Well, the first thing I did when I got this case on my desk, said the DOJ lawyer, is I asked the same question. The answer I got back is not satisfactory. She's like, I don't know. El Salvador's not talking to us. All of this points to a functional control, said Xinis. Ruvini called his own lack of information on why they couldn't bring him back frustrating as well. The United States can't call someone in El Salvador and just say, give us this guy back. So the DOJ lawyer appeared to suggest that he had asked the government to return Abrego, but they did not heed his advice. He then asked the judge for 24 hours, but it was unclear what the request was for. So another lawyer for Abrego asked the court to order his client's return to the U.S., saying he isn't asking for micromanaging by the court, but the government needs to be put on a leash, he said, to ensure this is done in a timely manner. At least today, it doesn't seem like they're taking it seriously, Sandoval Moschenberg said at Ruvini's arguments. Now, during the hearing, Xinis also appeared skeptical about the alleged ties to MS-13, which Trump officials have maintained, saying he has not seen sufficient evidence. She has not seen sufficient evidence. Saying when someone is accused of membership in such a violent and predatory organization, it comes in the form of an indictment or complaint or some other robust process. Yeah, right, robust. Yeah, like the 4 times you tried to get Trump. The government made a choice here to produce no evidence rights. And so they said that this person, there's not sufficient evidence of this. And I don't remember if this was the guy who didn't show up to court or if that was another person. So I want to be clear that we're not misstating that. But we did read through, I think it was Will Chamberlain's thread on this, and he gave us some great details. This guy had plenty of process, and the only withholding was about El Salvador. And also, Will Chamberlain went into the follow-up on that and said, in hindsight, El Salvador has been reformed. So the basis that the judge used for withholding to El Salvador was about the pupusas. Remember? Pupusa guy. And the pupusas should no longer be in threat because El Salvador has cleaned up the pupusa problem now. So there's no risk to being returned back to El Salvador. So the basis for the withholding is really now moot. So the order came down from the judge. She says, fly him back, bring him home. She wrote the following from Judge Paula Xinis. Says, the court has reviewed the motion from Kilmar. This is a perfect name for an alleged MS-13 member. Kilmar, great. Says the court has reviewed plaintiff's motion for an injunction and the memo and the briefs. And Kristi Noem, who's named as the defendant here as well. I've read everything. The judge writes, well, Kilmar is a native of El Salvador and was granted withholding of removal in 2019, which this prohibited his removal to El Salvador. Now, the record reflects that Abrego Garcia was apprehended in Maryland without legal basis on March 12th, she says, and without further process or legal justification was removed to El Salvador on March 15th. Now, I'm sure Trump disputes that. Abrego Garcia is detained in the Centro de Cicat Center, and they contend his removal, his lawyers, violated the Fifth Amendment and U.S. Code and the APA, right there it is again, and other applicable legal protections. So this judge, appointed by Obama, who used to sue the cops, says, well, based on the record before the court, I find that this court retains jurisdiction over this. And I believe that they're going to win on the merits because this person was removed to El Salvador in violation of the Immigration and Nationality Act without any legal process at all. We read through it. His continued presence in the El Salvador for obvious reasons constitutes irreparable harm. You hear that, Nayib Bukele? She's talking garbage. Now, the balance of equities and the public interest weigh in favor of returning him to the United States, and the issuance of a preliminary injunction without further delay is necessary to restore him to the status quo and avoid the ongoing irreparable harm from his removal. And so for these reasons, the court directs defendants to return Abrego Garcia no later than April 7th, 2025. All right, so this is spicy. Like, the DOJ is going to have to go into overdrive, right? Go into that and really communicate with Bukele and try to get this guy back, right? Saying, accordingly, a memorandum opinion, if they want to comply with this, a memorandum opinion further sets forth the basis of this ruling. So she'll release that later. Saying, accordingly, it is the 4th day of April, and so she now orders that the motion is granted. So Trump and Kristi Noem and the rest of Homeland are hereby ordered, Rubio, everybody, to facilitate and effectuate the return of plaintiff Kilmar to the United States no later than 11:59 p.m. on Monday, April 7th. So get him on an airplane and get him back home right now. The preliminary relief is issued to restore the status quo. This judge has now taken over control of foreign policy, and this is a non-citizen, by the way, not even close, right? To preserve Abrego Garcia's access to due process in accordance with the Constitution and governing immigration statutes. The clerk is directed to transmit the orders to all the parties. Wild, right? The judge saying, get this guy back in the United States by Monday at midnight or else. And we remember, right, this is the real story from Will Chamberlain. Just want to make sure we are familiar with what we're talking about here. This was the guy who had multiple proceedings. Here's the document. Bond proceedings. Respondent Kilmar, Abrego Kilmar Armato, is a native. He's not a citizen or national. This was in 2019, okay? What are you talking about? He's a native of the citizen. He arrived at the United States, judge. He is not admitted or paroled, and he's an alien present without being admitted or paroled. He was held in custody by Homeland. Now, the finding that he was a member of MS-13 came up because he asked for bond. Right there. Here it is. Immigration judge reviewed the evidence and found it showed he's a verified member of MS-13. It says right here. Therefore, Abrego Garcia did not demonstrate that he could be released from custody. After considering the information by both parties, the court concluded that no bond was appropriate. First reason, he failed to meet the burden of demonstrating he would not be a danger, as evidence shows that he is a verified member of MS-13. There's your due process, judge. Did you miss it? You should follow Will on X. The BIA held that this form is inherently untrustworthy and admissible. The respondent says that he erroneously states he was detained in connection to murder. He also claims that this contradicts this, and it does appear at odds with the gang field interview sheets. Okay, so this guy's like lying. The reason for the arrest given on his form does appear at odds with the gang field interview sheet, which states that the respondent was approached because he and others were loitering outside Home Depot. Regardless, the determination that he's a gang member appears to be trustworthy and is supported by other evidence on the record. So how come this judge found that, but the other judge found differently? Oh yeah, the immigration judge also found that he was a flight risk, noting that the history, he's failing to appear for proceedings pertaining to his traffic violations. Yeah, that's right. It was the guy who failed to show up to court. He's a flight risk, right? Yeah, there's so many I can't keep track of them, but yeah, it didn't show up to court. So no, you're not going to show up. We're not going to release you. This judge ordered what another judge, Elizabeth Kessler, shout out to Elizabeth, a good finding. This judge just overruled, basically. Says no evidence that this guy's a flight risk, no evidence that he's MS-13 and he was unlawfully arrested. What? Abrego appealed to the Board of Immigration, which affirmed the judge's findings. He got an appeal. That's how much due process he got. And they dismissed the appeal. Fast forward, he filed another claim, right? Got another immigration lawyer making trillions right now and sued, said for another claim for asylum. That's when he got the removal to El Salvador prohibition because of the pupusas. Pupusaria Sicilia. Their pupusas were getting obliterated down there in El Salvador and he fled the country. He's like, they're wrecking my mama's pupusas. So I'm going to go to America. What a great son. So he got plenty of process. Here are the documents. Okay, judge, you should read them and then revise your ruling accordingly. But she ordered him back into America because that's what the Democrats are doing right now. And I guess we'll see what they do. We'll see what happens, whether they go into the El Salvador prison, whether they can bring him home, and they got to do it by Monday or this judge is going to do the same thing they've been trying to do in other jurisdictions, which is try to hold Trump in contempt, just like Judge Boasberg is maybe going to do, and just like she's trying to do, right? It's a contempt trap that will lead to an impeachment trap as they instigate a so-called constitutional crisis by stepping way outside of her jurisdiction. This guy got plenty of process, and really she's lying, right? To come back in her opinion and drop something so ridiculous, saying he got no due process. He was apprehended without legal basis. We just read it, and was deported without further legal justification was removed. It was all justified right there. Other immigration judges found for it. This is the same guy. Am I crazy? Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. And this is what Will Chamberlain shared with us right here. Same dude, Kilmar Armando Abrego Garcia. Or just making sure that we can read because apparently the judge can't. So we'll keep our eye on this one. Obviously, the Democrats are trying to turn this into something. They went down to the border, and Bill Malugin, who reports for Fox, was sharing this with us, says the delegation of House Democrats visiting the southern border today will hold no public events and their visit is closed to press. They finally go down to the border. Now, a Border Patrol source just sent me this photo of Benny Thompson. Look at him. Benny Thompson. What's he doing down here? Is he going to go visit the border? Or is he like going to the casino or something? I don't know what he's doing, but said he's there. They're at the Chula Vista Border Patrol station, reached out to the Democrats to inquire about covering the visit. As of other media outlets, we were told it's not public. Sorry. Their visit is to conduct oversight of the Trump administration's border policies. We're sure. All right. So here was Homeland spokeswoman called Trisha Ohio explaining what the truth is about this Kilmar fella.
People should know who this individual is. He's not some Maryland father, as the mainstream media will make you believe. He's actually a member of MS-13 and was involved in human trafficking. It's unbelievable, the framing of this. Whether this man is in El Salvador or in a U.S. detention center, he should be locked up. And people should also know who MS-13 is. It is a gang that rapes, maims, and kills Americans for sport. They should not be on U.S. soil, and any media outlet who tries to make him a darling or a victim should really be ashamed, because the American people do know better.
Well, Judge Zinnis and Boasberg and the Democrats and all of the mostly Democrat-appointed judges want them in our country. They care more about their due process rights than they ever cared about the J6ers or the pro-lifers or anybody who was trying to survive during COVID. They didn't really care about any of our rights. But if you're a Tren de Aragua gangbanger, half the ACLU will come work for you for free. Here's Representative Wesley Hunt from Texas.
I want to start by saying this. I'm a military guy, a West Point guy. General Patton famously said, either you lead, follow, or get out of the way. President Trump has led on this issue. The country has followed, and those that oppose securing our border must get out of the way. Let me be clear. For the past 4 years, basically, the Democrat Party has obstructed what's happened and progress at the border. Keep in mind, they opposed H.R. 2 that we passed the House 2 years ago. Their borders are Kamala Harris never went down to the border. Then they blamed us for not securing the border toward the end of his term. And then guess what? Abracadabra, snap of his fingers with the signing of a few executive orders, the border gets fixed. And then now they want to go to the border because they lost on this issue back in November and they have no leadership. So what are they going to see at the border? A fixed border, because President Trump fixed it in the last 6 weeks and they should have been there for the past 4 years. This derelict of duty costed them this last election, and then now they're trying to clean up on aisle 4, but it's just too late.
It's too late for them to try to clean up this mess. Trump is going to take care of it. It would be nice if they would just let our country get rid of gang members in America. I don't know why they have to fight us so so hard on this, but we hope the American people are watching who they are, who they're standing for, and who they're fighting for, and don't forget it.